Hello and welcome. I am Bigfoot, and this is episode 10 of my Let's Play series. If you saw the previous episode, then where I was at was in the... Well, what I need to do is move the camera out and, well, fill in this lake and start moving the bus through. So, that's what I'm going to get on with. Okay, so that's the camera moved, and I've started to place down the first few belts. And I just want to go through my thinking of this bus because it's got to do a lot of different things. The other bus it was big and it had a lot of things, but it was very clearly defined. It wasn't messy. Whereas this one has the potential to get really messy, and it has got very messy for me in the past. So I'm going to treat it in layers, and the first layer are the kind of the inter-process mixing. So other processes in the shopping mall which feed other processes in the shopping mall but don't really go anywhere else. Um, these are these are processes that are very easy to get lost, and I've lost them many times. So I want to deal with them first, and also I want to deal with them closest to the end because it gives me some opportunity to reuse the space further down here if I need to, and bring it in and lose a few belts if that's what I chose to do. So these belts are two belts of stone brick, then one belt of concrete, and then one belt of stone. So the stone brick needs to feed the wall, the coloured bricks, and the oil refinery, and the stone needs to feed the stone furnace, which feeds the boilers. Concrete, that will be needed if I need to put the, is it rocket silo? I think it's the rocket silo. That needs to go somewhere, and I'm looking at these gaps, and that looks like good gaps for the rocket silo for me. So I've got the concrete there. It's not been plumbed in, but that's where it's going to go. So that's kind of the first layer. I wanted to get these bits and pieces done. Now I've written a list of all these of this first layer because I want to make sure I don't miss any. So the other ones on my list that I have are, or at least the ones that what I've decided is to put them on the other side. I'm going to have a similar sort of layer on the other side of the bus. So engine and electric engine. Oh no, engine I've brought in from down here. This is engine here, so that feeds all of the, like the flamethrower, the locomotive, the pump. I think there's another thing as well. Oh, the artillery wagon, and all of the things that need an engine are in here. I also need an electric engine to go with the concrete if I'm going to do the rocket silo, but the electric engine is going to be on the other side. So I've left that. I'm going to do that on the other side. That's what I've decided. So next layer will probably be computer chips, and then I deal with iron. Then I've got to deal with the fuel and coal for plastics. Then I'll deal with the barrels, or at least one side of the barrels. Then I'll have another little bus for stuff that goes to the rocket. Then I'll have some train tracks and my ammunition for the perimeter wall. Then I'll have copper. Then I'll have more computer chips, plastic for low density structure. Oh, and don't forget the barrels on the other side of the train tracks. And then I'll have this similar sort of collection of little processes on the other side with electric engine, speed module, potentially battery, those sorts of things. So I deal with that over on the other side when I get there. So that's layer number one. What I want to do now is computer chips. That is half of the bus done. Half of it. So working our way from left to right, we've got red chips, I think, or blue chips, and then what, red or blue chips, one or the other, I don't know which way around they are. Then we've got 3 green chips. Then we've got these 2 banks of 4 red belts. So this bank of 4 is for the iron, which is non-SPM critical, and then these 4 belts are for the parts of the factory which are SPM critical. I tried to separate them just so I know which is going where. These 2 are steel. These 2 are lube. These 3 are coal, to act as fuel for the furnaces and for plastic. This gap here is a gap for railway, the same way I've left the gap in the other bus so that trains can loop round. This is half of my water barrel allowance. Then what I'm going to have is I'm going to have 3 belts for rocket launch stuff. Then I need the 2 belts for the perimeter wall stuff. Then I've got the middle railway line. Then I've got more perimeter wall stuff. Then more rocket stuff. Oops. And then I need to put more water barrels, and then I need to work my way through the other ingredients, because there's stuff on this side of the bus that I haven't dealt with yet, like plastic or copper. For the chips, I've tried to make it so that red and blue chips, I've got the same amount of red and blue chips on both sides of the factory. It just means that I don't have to feed these chips all the way across. So I'm going to have 2 belts on the other side that are exactly the same. Everything has been joined and split together to make it so that the flows will be the same on this side and on the other. So the chips will just go wherever they need to go. Green chips, I've tried to do something similar, although it's a bit more difficult with 3. So what I've ended up with the middle one coming through unchanged, and then the outside 2 will split off and they will join with the other 2 on the other side. So some of it will be split, some of it won't. Some of this will also have to find its way back over here. There are some processes that are really heavy required on green chips, and these are going to be needed. Because if you remember, I've got 6 belts of green chips, so I've got 3 either side. So I have split that 50-50, even if, you know, the flows are kind of averaged out by me joining them and splitting them together like I have done down here. But I still ultimately only have 3 either side, and I've got 6 in total. So those are going to need to find their way over to speed modules and whatever it is. Can't think of it. But there's going to be a whole lot of green chip stuff over here. Flying robot frames, I think. Anyway, so that's this side of the bus sorted. And now what I need to do is get on with the other side. Okay, I think that is the bus completed. It's a complete beast. Complete beast. Right, so I've done that side. If we work our way across from this side, we've got more water barrels. Then we've got the rest of the coal. Then we've got copper. So this is the copper that's going to low density structure. These 2 are the copper that's going everywhere else. These 2 are plastic. These 2 are explosives, which I almost forgot. I didn't forget. I probably should have put it on the other side, but it's there now. I remembered it just in time to get it in. Then green chips, then blue and red chips. Then I've still got a few things on my list. Where's my list? Here we go. So speed module, electric engine, potentially batteries, maybe something else as well. So I've got a few spare here just in case. I've got a bit of a gap if I don't use them. I'm going to need more space. Anyway, then we've got the railway. Then we've got the racetrack, and then we've got a path, and then I'm going to start on the rest of the jumble, which again I've made a list of blocks, big blocks that I need to do over here. So engine, rocket control unit, low density structure. I'm going to need 2 separate blocks, identical blocks, but they're going to need that for 2 blocks, and then I've got to make all 3 modules. And then I've got to make ammo. There's still a lot to do here. Still a lot to do. Okay, let's fill in the rest of this. So I've kind of filled in the details there. We can see that this is where the science bus is, over on this side of the map, or the bus even. So what I want to do is reflect that over on this side with the amount of belts that I need for this side of the science. And I'm going to do exactly the same as I did before. It is a little bit different though. So, blue science, red chip, that's going to come from the bus below, so I need to allot it a space. Sulfur, that's going to be coming from below, so that doesn't need a space in the bus. So I only need 2 belts for blue science. For purple science, I need 2 railways, and then 2, so I need 4 for blue science, and I need 3 for yellow science. So I need 2, 4, 3. One, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and the 3. Forgot the 3. And that's the science bus sorted. So I just need to plumb it in now. Okay, so here is, can I fit it in this block size elegantly, challenge number 1. I've obviously got this line that I'm still thinking about up here, but that's not for this moment. The first thing I need to do is I need to fill this gap elegantly. So what we have over here is 3 blocks, and each of these 3 blocks is a different size. So that I can't match the same because these are all different. Not to mention that this is the science bus itself is smaller. It's bigger on one side than the other. So what I have is a few possible blocks that I can put in this space, and I need to make sure that whatever blocks I do put in this space fits in elegantly. So I need to play around with which blocks I put where to be able to figure out how I'm going to fill this space. So, challenge number 1. Oakley dokley. Right, so I filled the space mostly quite elegantly. These are my 2 blocks of low density structure. If you're interested in efficiencies and that sort of thing, I need 94 assembly machines in each block, and I've got 96. So in each block there's 2 assembly machines I don't need. So I see that as a good efficiency. I'm happy with that. Then above that, which is kind of like my infill block, I tried to put one of the other big blocks in there, it just didn't fit. So what I've put is batteries and flying robot frames. It ended up being a real squeeze. I've only got 7 tiles space between them, and I have actually got exactly 7 inputs and outputs to this whole thing. So it's been a right squeeze fiddle trying to get it in there. I have actually got a couple of tiles I could pinch from. There's a lane I can use here. This one I could lose, and similarly again on the other one I could lose that. And I think there's a lane in the science bus I could probably lose. So it was in my mind that I possibly needed to take this down, rebuild it, but I've managed to squeeze it in there. I think if I had complete freedom, I would claim those extra tiles and use them, but nah, it's in there. It's not like I've struggled, but it's hard, but it's in there anyway. So that's those two. Now working up, I can start looking at other stuff on my list. Other bigger blocks need to go in here. So that's what's next. And that is rocket control unit. Sorted. I'll go through efficiency. So on my list, I need 140 assembly machines, and what I've actually got is 144. So 4 superfluous assembly machines. if I'm going through these kind of numbers a little bit too much, I am. The point is that I've had a few comments in a few of my videos where people have said, you're just building things to look good. That's the only reason you're building it that way. And it's not. There's a lot more thought that goes into it than that. Although this is the first kind of SPM directed base that I've made at this sort of scale. The other bases are the same. The other bases, although they're not SPM, the same thought process went into them. They were just aiming for the wrong design point. I was having fun with it rather than trying to nail down the numbers, So you mean, now that I'm on the SPM, numbers, I'm good with numbers. Yeah, so there's a lot more thought that goes into it than just looking nice. That's probably the way that I would try and clarify that. The other thing to explain, so on the other side of the bus, this is kind of all of the random stuff. This is all the little bits and pieces that I need. I've just noticed. Oh, that bus needs to carry on up. Well, that's a mistake. Poo. Oh, anyway, I'll deal with that later. The process on this left-hand side of the bus are kind of just the things that I need. There's a lot of processes, and the size of the block that I use is determined by the conveyor belts. The bottom bit always starts off with a decent structure. I know what I'm doing there, and that's what sets out the block. And then I fit the space. I just fill the space with processes until I run out of processes that I need to build. This side of the bus is different. This side of the jumble, sorry, it's about the big processes. So what I want to achieve is I want to have a block dimension, i.e. the width of the block, the length of the block. This is the critical dimension. I want that dimension to be usable elegantly for all of these blocks. And because I can lay them out all consistently, and what I mean by that is they're all the same. They've got 2 assembly machines split with 2 belts going down the middle and 1 belt running out. They're all other than these bits in the middle, the other bits, the non-big processes, all these big processes are set up the exact same way. And then all I do is adjust the width of it and play around with the conveyor belts in the middle, and that way they all line up the same length. It means that this block can be identical length for all of these processes, and I can just play around with the numbers to get it to work. Before I started building these bottom blocks for the low density structure, I made a list of all of the big blocks. I like my lists. I forget about stuff, so they're good. So I made a list of all of the big blocks that I knew I would need. I made a list of all, and put next to them how many assembly machines each process was going to require. And I tried to find a number that was kind of common to all of them. And not just common, but also usable. Okay, so what I've got is 12 rows of assembly machines. So that gives me 6 lines of input either side of the bus, so 12 in total. And that is divisible a lot of different ways. And it's even more pertinent for something like this because I've got 3 belts of copper coming in. And that can be difficult to split up in an elegant way. But because I've got 12 lines of input, each of these copper inputs just feeds 4 of them. And so this copper feeds 1, 2, 3, 4. This line of copper feeds 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the last one feeds 1, 2, 3, and 4. So because I've got 12, I can make, I could make it work with 4 or 6, 2, 3. It's 12 is a good number. I've also done, but again, depending on the base that I'm building, this number will change. I know in the past I've done 18 rows. That seemed to work out quite elegantly. I'm pretty sure in my big SPM base, the first 2000 one, I think I did 24. I think I went through that in the walkthrough. And it just means that by setting out this distance from here to here with a standard kind of factory layout, I can use that same factory layout for these other big processes which occupy a lot of space. And it's nice to have an elegant way of dealing with them, or at least that's the way I see it. And this same layout, I can use the same layout for modules. 2 inputs, 1 output. It will work for modules, fine and dandy. It will work for engine. It's a little bit of jiggery pokery that needs to go on because we need to make the gears and the pipes to go with the engines. So we won't have 12 rows of engines, we'll have 10 because the first 2 will be taken up by pipes and gears, I think, maybe more. Don't know yet, haven't done that, haven't got that far. It's just a nice block layout that I can use multiple times. And then whatever I need to fill in, I can fill in. I'm pretty good at that too. That just happened to work out perfectly. Really, really perfectly. I needed 32 assembly. Needed 32 assembly machines for flying robot frames. That's exactly what I've got. Batteries. It's difficult to really know how many batteries you might want because although you don't need that many for SPM, it's nice to have a lot more than you need because of personal batteries for your armor, which takes an absolute age to create. So what I set down, what I wanted was 48, and that's what I've got. So I've got 48 and 32. That's worked out perfectly. This has worked out perfect. It's all going well so far. Right. So what else is on my list? Where's my big blocks list? Engine and modules. That's what I need to do now in these next 2 blocks. I still need. I need to fix this. That's really. I'm really annoyed about that. So I've got quite a long way to go yet. I've got a lot of processes. I've got ammo, I've got concrete, I've got stone blocks, I've got coloured concrete, colour reinforced concrete, I've got cannon shells, artillery, all sorts still to go. So I'm going to carry on going up here for a little while and then see where I get to about here probably. Maybe thinking about doing a bit more over on the other side. So, engines, I think. And there we have engines. I've been a little bit more liberal with the amount of assembly machines. Engines I feel a bit like the same I do with batteries in that they come in useful, even if you need a certain number for SPM, but it's nice to have more of them for other things. So although there's probably more assembly machines than I need, they're going to get used. Maybe not for SPM, but for other things. Also, in terms of requirements, I need 64 of them, 64 assembly machines. And because I've got rows of 10, or 10 rows, sorry, that would mean I would need to have, to round it up to 70, and then I would have to have 7 in each column. So that would be 3 on one side of the bus and 4 on the other. So that would be inelegant. So I've just done it 4 on either side. Yeah. There's a certain part of me that feels like, well, I've done all of this and the numbers have been pretty much spot on all the way through this. I think I deserve a little bit of give and take with regards to the numbers. I'm not. If there are going to be any imperfections in the numbers around any part of the factory, it's going to be in here because the blocks are so big, and I've got to make them work. So anyway, more engines than I need, but I'm going to use them. Also, another thing to note is that because I need bus engines on the other side of the bus, over on the other side of the jumble, I've split each output so that it goes to a belt that goes left and it goes right. So the one that goes right will go down the science bus and feed into blue science. The other one will go to the other side of the bus and feed the things that need it over on the other side of the bus. And it will go up as well because it needs to feed electric engines. So that's just a little bit different from the other way, the normal way that I would do it. Yeah, just a slight variation on the theme. As I said, I put pipes and gears over here, so I've just allocated one of those lanes to pipes and gears, and then I mix them on this lane, and then I just split that and feed that everywhere else. The other belt is for steel, that just comes in and does its thing. So that's engines. We are well underway with the blocks. But for today's episode, that's probably enough. I hope it's been interesting. Till next time.